Emily's new routine began on a sunny morning when she arrived at the imposing mansion of Robert Johnson. Her hands trembled slightly as she pressed the doorbell, and her mind was filled with both expectations and apprehensions. Greeted by the stern housekeeper, Emily was led inside, where the hallways adorned with old paintings and luxurious carpets made her feel as if she had stepped into another world. She knew that this job could be her chance to change her life, leaving behind the hardships of the orphanage. As soon as she started being introduced to her duties, Emily realized it wouldn't be easy. The mansion was enormous, with dozens of rooms and countless details to be taken care of. She found herself cleaning dark wood furniture, polishing silverware, and tidying up the immense library. Despite her efforts, the criticism came quickly and sharply, especially from James, the butler. "This isn't good enough, Emily," he would often say, making her feel as though she would never be able to meet the high expectations. However, the young woman refused to be discouraged. She remembered the advice of the orphanage caregivers: be strong and resilient. Determined to prove her worth, Emily dedicated herself to learning every detail of her tasks. She asked the more experienced colleagues questions and closely observed how they performed the tasks, mentally noting all the tips. Each day was a new challenge, but she felt that she was making progress, even if slowly. One morning, while she was in the main hall cleaning a crystal chandelier, Emily heard the front door open. Robert Johnson had returned from a long business trip. He was an imposing man, with a presence that dominated the room. When he saw her, he smiled cordially, but upon noticing the pendant she wore, his expression changed. The pendant, a small heart-shaped jewel, seemed to hold deep meaning for him. Curious, Robert approached and, with an intrigued look, asked about the necklace. "That's a beautiful necklace, Emily. Where did you get it?" She replied, a bit nervous. "It was the only keepsake left with me when I was abandoned at the orphanage. I never knew where it came from." Robert's reaction was unexpected. He fell silent for a few moments, seemingly lost in thought. That pendant was identical to the one his missing daughter used to wear. That moment changed the dynamics between them. Robert couldn't ignore the coincidence and decided to investigate more about Emily's past. He began to observe her more closely, noticing gestures and traits that seemed strangely familiar to him. There was something about that young woman that made him believe she might be more than just a maid. Doubt began to consume his thoughts, and he knew he needed to discover the truth. With this growing suspicion, Robert decided to take action. He didn't want to raise false hopes, but he couldn't ignore the possibility either. Hiring a detective seemed like the next logical step. Tom, an old friend and experienced investigator, was called in to help. Robert explained the whole situation to Tom, who accepted the challenge. The mission was clear: uncover everything possible about Emily's past and her mysterious pendant. The first days at the mansion were especially difficult for Emily. The size of the place and the sophistication of the tasks demanded more than she had imagined. James, the butler, didn't make things any easier. With a stern look and sharp words, he always seemed to find flaws in her work. "These windows aren't shining as they should, Emily. You need to try harder," he would say, his tone as cutting as a blade. Emily felt her heart tighten, but she never let him see her insecurities. Determined to overcome the difficulties, Emily redoubled her efforts. She started her day before everyone else, reviewing each task to ensure nothing was out of place. The exhaustion often consumed her, but she remembered her personal promise: to prove that she could make a difference, that she was not just an orphan without a future. Every criticism from James was a new motivation for her to improve. "I will succeed," she murmured to herself, like a mantra. One afternoon, while organizing the library, Emily came across an old manual on etiquette and household services. Her eyes lit up as she realized that this book could be an ally. She began studying it during breaks, absorbing every detail about how to serve at the table, polish silverware, and organize events. Her efforts began to pay off. Gradually, the precision of her work improved, and she started to notice that James's criticisms became less frequent. Even so, James continued to be a critical presence. "You still have much to learn, girl," he would say. But now there was a slight tone of recognition in his voice. Emily realized that she was slowly earning his respect. The other employees also began to notice her dedication. Maria, the cook, often offered her an encouraging smile and kind words. "You're doing well, Emily. Don't give up," she would say, offering her a slice of cake as an incentive. Little by little, Emily began to feel more comfortable in the mansion. Her confidence grew with each passing day, and she began to believe that she truly belonged there. One day, while polishing the chandeliers in the dining room, she noticed Robert Johnson watching her. He was impressed by Emily's transformation. "I see you're adapting well, Emily," he commented, with a genuine smile. "Keep it up." This small approval from Robert was a great boost for Emily. She redoubled her efforts, focusing on the details and striving for perfection in every task. Her work began to be noticed not just by James, but by the entire mansion staff. The constant criticisms were now giving way to praise and recognition. "You're doing an excellent job, Emily," James said one day, much to her surprise. "Keep it up, and you'll have a bright future here." Tom began the investigation with enthusiasm. First, he visited the orphanage where Emily had grown up, speaking with the caregivers and sifting through old records. The caregivers welcomed him warmly and shared what they remembered about Emily's arrival. "It was on a cold winter night," one of them said. "She was left at the church door, wrapped in a blanket, with that necklace around her neck." Tom meticulously noted everything, knowing that every detail could be crucial. The initial clues, though valuable, were still fragmented, so he decided to look for witnesses who might have seen something that winter night, 17 years ago. Tom decided to visit the church where Emily had been left. He spoke with the local priest, who still remembered the event. "It was a freezing night," the priest recalled. "I heard a cry and found the girl at the door. There was no note, no clue as to who had left her." Tom felt he was facing a complex puzzle, but he did not give up. He needed more information to connect the dots. Back at the mansion, Tom updated Robert on his progress. "Finding who left her at the church is the next step," he said. Robert listened intently, feeling a mixture of hope and anxiety. "Keep going, Tom. We're getting closer to the truth," he encouraged. Emily, who was also following the investigation with interest, felt her heart race with each new discovery. She wanted more than ever to understand her past. Tom expanded his investigation, searching for witnesses who might have seen something that night. He spoke with longtime residents of the area, hopeful that someone would remember a crucial detail. After several attempts, he found an elderly woman who recalled seeing a nervous man lurking around the church that night. "He seemed troubled," she said, "but I couldn't see his face clearly." This lead, though vague, gave Tom a new direction. Persistent, Tom continued his search, combing through old archives and records of events in the area. He discovered that, at the time, there had been reports of a strange man seen near the church, but no detailed description was available. The pieces of the puzzle still didn't fit together completely, but Tom felt he was on the right track. Each day of investigation brought him closer to the truth, and he knew he couldn't give up now. Finally, Tom found a clue that could change everything. An old local newspaper mentioned an incident involving a man in a state of despair near the church on the same night Emily had been left there. Although there was no direct connection yet, Tom felt he was close to an important revelation. He knew he would need to deepen his investigations to uncover the identity of the man and his connection to Emily. One afternoon, Tom visited the church where Emily had been left once again. The old caretaker, a man of advanced age, vaguely remembered a man who used to lurk around the area at that time. "He always seemed worried, looking over his shoulder," the caretaker recounted. "I remember thinking that he was running from something or someone." Tom felt a chill as he heard this, realizing that this could be the lead he had been searching for. Tom decided to follow this new lead, speaking with more people who might have seen the man. Finally, he found a woman who lived near the church and had a clear memory of that night. "I saw a man leaving a child at the church door. He was visibly nervous, as if he was doing something wrong," she said with a thoughtful look. "I couldn't see his face, but I remember he was wearing a long coat and a hat. Tom knew he was getting closer to the truth. He returned to Robert's mansion to report his findings. "Robert, I'm starting to piece together a clearer profile," Tom said, handing over his notes. "There are several witnesses who remember a nervous man leaving Emily at the church. This confirms it wasn't a random act." Robert felt a mix of relief and anxiety. They were making progress, but important pieces of the puzzle were still missing. Robert thanked Tom for his continued efforts and asked him to intensify the search. "We need to find out who this man was and why he left Emily," Robert said, the determination evident in his voice. "We're closer to the truth, but there's still much to be revealed." Tom nodded and set out to continue his investigation, knowing that each day brought them closer to the answer they both longed for. Meanwhile, at the mansion, Robert tried to stay calm. Emily knew nothing about the ongoing investigation, and he preferred to keep it that way until he was certain. He watched her from a distance, noticing increasingly striking similarities between her and his late wife. Every gesture, every smile, reinforced his hope that Emily was indeed his daughter. "If it's true, I will do everything to make up for the lost time," he thought, with a renewed sense of determination. Tom continued to follow every lead, determined to uncover the identity of the mysterious man. His next visit was to an old priest who had worked at the church at the time. "I remember a man who would sometimes come to pray," said the priest. "He always seemed troubled, as if he carried a heavy burden on his conscience. I never knew his name, but I remember he confessed something about abandoning someone." With this new information, Tom knew he was close to a major revelation. He continued to investigate, searching for records and possible connections that could lead to the man. He knew that each step forward was a significant advance in solving the mystery of Emily and bringing peace to Robert. He felt more motivated than ever, knowing that the truth was within reach. Tom's investigation finally led to a shocking discovery. While reviewing old records and cross-referencing information, he found a detail that changed everything. The man who had left Emily at the church had a direct connection to the mansion. It was James, the butler. Tom could hardly believe the coincidence and the implied betrayal. He decided it was time to confront Robert with the truth. Upon arriving at the mansion, Tom asked Robert for a private conversation in the office. "Robert, I found something you need to know," he began with a grave tone. Robert tensed up, sensing the seriousness in Tom's voice. "Tell me, Tom, what did you discover?" Tom took a deep breath before revealing the truth. "The man who left Emily at the church was James, your butler. He believed that you wouldn't be able to raise your daughter alone after your wife's death." Robert was paralyzed for a moment, trying to process the information. The idea that James, someone he trusted, could have done something so cruel was almost impossible to accept. "James, my own butler," he murmured, more to himself than to Tom. Anger and a sense of betrayal began to boil inside him. "This needs to be resolved now," he said with determination. Calling James to the office, Robert confronted him with a look that mixed disappointment and fury. "James, I need you to tell me the truth," he began, his voice laden with emotion. "You left a child at the church 17 years ago. Why?" James, caught off guard, tried to maintain his composure, but the weight of guilt was evident in his eyes. "Mr. Johnson, yes, it was me," he confessed, his voice trembling. James explained that after Robert's wife's death, he believed that his employer was incapable of caring for his daughter. "I thought I was doing what was best for her, for all of us," he said, his voice filled with regret. "I believed you weren't emotionally capable of raising Emily on your own. It was a terrible mistake, I know. I never meant to cause so much pain." Robert listened, his face a mask of pain and disbelief. "You destroyed years of our lives," Robert said, his voice low but full of intensity. "Your arrogance and your decisions took my daughter away from me." James only lowered his head, unable to face Robert's furious gaze. "I deeply regret it, sir," he whispered. "If I could go back, I would do everything differently." Feeling betrayed by someone so close, Robert decided he couldn't let this go unpunished. "You will pay for what you did, James. Not just for me, but for Emily," he declared, his decision made. He called his lawyer and presented all the evidence to the police. James was arrested, admitting to his crimes and explaining his selfish and desperate motivations. As James was taken away, Robert felt a mix of relief and sadness. The truth was finally exposed, but the emotional cost was enormous. Now, he needed to focus on how to tell Emily everything. He knew the revelation would change her life forever, and he wanted to prepare her in the best way possible. Emily needs to know the truth, but with care, he thought, determined to protect her. The decision to bring James to justice was not easy for Robert, but he knew it was necessary. Together with his lawyer, he gathered all the evidence that Tom had collected. The proof was irrefutable: records, testimonies, and James's own confession. Upon arriving at the police station, Robert felt the weight of responsibility. "I'm here to report a crime that happened 17 years ago," he said to the officer on duty, handing over the documents. The process of arresting James was swift. The police acted efficiently, and soon he was being interrogated. "Mr. James, you are being accused of abandoning a child," the detective began, his voice firm. James, now visibly worn down, did not attempt to defend himself. "Yes, I did it," he confessed, his voice heavy with guilt. "I was desperate. The death of Mr. Johnson's wife made me believe he wouldn't be able to raise his daughter alone." Robert watched the interrogation with a mixture of anger and sadness. "Did you have the right to decide that?" he asked, unable to contain his indignation. James lowered his head, unable to look Robert in the eye. "I thought I was doing what was best," he murmured. "I was wrong. I never meant to cause so much pain." James's words were like knives, each one cutting deeper. The case was quickly brought to court. Robert's lawyer presented all the evidence, and James was convicted. "You committed a serious crime, driven by a misguided sense of duty," the judge said during the sentencing. "Your act had devastating consequences for an entire family." James was sentenced to several years in prison, with no possibility of parole for a long time. His expression was one of resignation. He knew he deserved that punishment. As James was taken to prison, Robert felt a mix of relief and sadness. Justice had been served, but the emotional damage couldn't be easily repaired. He thought about how to tell Emily. "She needs to know the truth," he told himself, but he feared how she would react. He decided that the best time would be when they were both ready to face this new reality. Back at the mansion, Robert called Emily for a serious conversation. "Emily, we need to talk about something very important," he began, his voice gentle. Emily sensed the gravity in Robert's tone and nodded, sitting beside him. "We've discovered who left you at the church," he continued, holding her hands. "It was James, our butler. He believed I wouldn't be able to take care of you after your mother's death." Emily was shocked, trying to process the information. "James? But why?" she asked, her eyes filling with tears. "He thought he was doing what was best for all of us," Robert explained sadly. "But he was wrong. Now he's in prison, paying for what he did." Emily felt a mix of emotions: anger, sadness, and a strange sense of relief. "At least now we know the truth," she said, squeezing Robert's hand. The revelation created a new bond between Robert and Emily. Both knew they had a long road ahead to heal the wounds of the past, but they were determined to do it together. "We'll get through this," Robert said firmly. "We're a family, and nothing will separate us again." Emily agreed, feeling a new hope blossoming in her heart. After all the turmoil involving James, Robert knew he needed to take an important step to definitively clarify the relationship between him and Emily. "Emily, I think we should do a DNA test to be absolutely sure," he said one quiet afternoon at the mansion. Emily, sitting beside him, felt a mix of anxiety and hope. "I agree, Robert. I need to know the truth," she replied, holding the heart-shaped pendant. The next day, Robert scheduled an appointment at a renowned clinic. When they arrived, both were nervous but determined. The doctor explained the procedure and collected the saliva samples. The results should be ready in a few days, he informed them. While they waited, the atmosphere at the mansion was one of anticipation. Emily tried to keep herself busy with her tasks, but the waiting was torturous. Robert, on the other hand, grew increasingly anxious, spending sleepless nights. Finally, the day of the results arrived. Robert received a call from the clinic and immediately called Emily to the office. "The results are in," he said, his voice tense. Emily felt her heart race. Sitting side by side, they opened the envelope together. The tension in the air was palpable. When they read the document, the confirmation was there, clear and undeniable. Emily was Robert Johnson's daughter. Both remained silent for a moment, absorbing the magnitude of the revelation. Robert was the first to speak. "Emily, you are truly my daughter," he said, his voice choked with emotion. Tears streamed down both their faces as they embraced, finally feeling the confirmation they had longed for. "I always felt there was something special between us," Emily murmured, with a smile mixed with tears. "Now we know it's true." The embrace was long and filled with emotions repressed for so many years. The news quickly spread throughout the mansion. The staff, who had followed the story with curiosity and concern, were moved to learn the truth. Maria, the cook, was the first to congratulate them. "I always knew there was something special about you, Emily," she said with a warm smile. The mansion, once a place of secrets and tensions, was now filled with joy and celebration. Robert decided it was time to fully integrate Emily into the Johnson family life. "I want you to feel a part of everything, Emily," he said as they walked through the garden. "We'll start with the basics. There's a lot to learn about the family business, but you'll have all the support you need." Emily, although still a bit overwhelmed by the magnitude of the changes, felt ready for the challenge. "I'm ready, Robert. I want to be a part of this." The following days were marked by a series of activities to integrate Emily. She learned the details of the family business, attended meetings, and began to understand the complexity of Robert's real estate empire. "You have a natural talent," Robert remarked proudly. "In time, you'll feel even more comfortable." Emily dedicated herself enthusiastically, determined to honor her new role in the family. Over time, Emily's presence brought a new energy to the mansion. Laughter echoed through the halls once again, and social events took on a new life. Robert felt rejuvenated by his daughter's presence and the certainty that, despite all the obstacles, they were finally united. "We're just getting started, Emily," he said one sunny morning. "The future is bright, and we'll face it together as a true family." The confirmation of the DNA test brought a wave of joy and relief to the entire mansion. The news of Emily's true identity spread quickly among the staff, who were eager to congratulate the young woman and her father. The first to approach was Maria, the cook. "Emily, you've always been a part of this family," she said, hugging her tightly. "Now it's official." Emily smiled, feeling welcomed and loved. Robert organized a special dinner to celebrate the family reunion. The dining room, usually formal and reserved, was festively decorated with flowers and candles that illuminated the room with a soft light. Emily, wearing a dress that Maria had helped her choose, looked radiant. "I never imagined that one day I would have a family like this," she confessed to Robert as they walked to the table. Robert smiled, his eyes shining with pride and happiness. "You've always been a part of me, Emily. Now let's celebrate together." During dinner, the mansion staff joined the Johnsons in the celebration. James, the former butler, was now just a distant memory, and the atmosphere was one of unity and hope. "Let's toast to our new life," Robert said, raising a glass of wine. "To Emily, my daughter, and to all of us who are a family." Everyone applauded, and Emily felt a wave of happiness and belonging that she had never experienced before. Laughter and lively conversations filled the dining room, creating an atmosphere of pure joy. Emily felt that she had finally found her place in the world. As she talked with the staff and family friends, she noticed how genuinely happy everyone was for her. "We're so happy for you, Emily," said John, the gardener. "You deserve all the happiness in the world." Emily thanked him, feeling truly blessed. After dinner, Robert took Emily to the garden, where the soft lantern lights created a magical setting. "I want you to know, Emily, that everything I have is yours as well," he said, holding her hands. "We will build a future together, as father and daughter." Emily felt a wave of emotion and gratitude. "Thank you, Dad," she replied, tears of happiness in her eyes. "I promise to honor all of this and make you proud." The news of the family reunion spread beyond the mansion, reaching Robert's social circles. Friends and colleagues congratulated him, expressing their joy over the discovery of his daughter. "Robert, this is a true miracle," said an old friend at a social event. "I'm so happy for you." Robert smiled, feeling complete for the first time in many years. "It truly is a miracle," he would respond, "and I'm very grateful for it." Emily began to integrate more and more into the Johnson family's life, attending social events and learning about the family business. Robert constantly encouraged her, offering guidance and support. "You have incredible potential, Emily," he would say. "In time, you'll become a strong and confident leader." Emily absorbed every word, determined to do her best. "I'm ready to face any challenge," she affirmed with a confident smile. The mansion, once marked by secrets and tensions, transformed into a home filled with love and joy. Emily and Robert shared moments of laughter and camaraderie, strengthening the bond they had rediscovered. "We're starting a new chapter, Emily," Robert said, looking toward the horizon with hope. "And I know it will be a bright one." Emily agreed, finally feeling at peace. "Yes, Dad, a bright future awaits us." With the bond between father and daughter finally established, Emily began to adapt to her new life. Each day, she learned more about the workings of the mansion and the Johnson family business. Robert, always by her side, dedicated time and patience to teaching her. "You have an important role here, Emily," he would often say. "I want you to feel confident and prepared." Emily absorbed each lesson with enthusiasm, determined to honor her new position. Robert organized a series of meetings to introduce Emily to the company's collaborators. The first of these was with the board of directors. "This is Emily, my daughter," he said proudly. The directors, initially surprised, soon welcomed her warmly. "Welcome, Emily," said the financial director. "We're happy to have you with us." Emily smiled, feeling more confident. "Thank you. I'm eager to learn and contribute." Emily immersed herself in studying the real estate market, accompanying Robert on property visits and important meetings. "This is one of our biggest acquisitions," Robert explained, showing her a luxury apartment complex. "It's crucial that we understand every detail." Emily took notes and asked pertinent questions, impressing Robert and the business partners. "You have a natural talent for this," Robert said proudly. As Emily integrated into the business, James faced the consequences of his actions. In prison, he reflected on his mistakes and the devastating impact he had caused. "I just wanted to protect everyone," he thought, full of regret. Visits were rare, but Robert decided to see him one last time. "You destroyed years of our lives, James," Robert said firmly, "but we're rebuilding. I hope you find your redemption." James, head bowed, murmured, "I deeply regret it, Mr. Johnson." Back at the mansion, Emily dedicated herself to creating a warm and joyful environment. She organized a special dinner for the mansion staff, thanking them for their support and patience during her adjustment. "You have been incredible," she said emotionally. "This mansion is a home because of you." The staff applauded, feeling valued. "We're here for you, Emily," said Maria, the cook, with a warm smile. Robert and Emily also began to share more personal moments. He took her to places that held special meaning for him and his late wife. "Your mother loved this place," Robert said, showing her a secret garden. "She always said it was our sanctuary." Emily felt a deep connection to the past and her mother's memory. "It's beautiful, Dad. Let's always keep it this way." Over time, Emily began to suggest innovations in the family business. "I think we should invest more in sustainability," she proposed during a meeting. "Consumers are becoming increasingly conscious." Robert was impressed with her vision and supported the initiative. "Your mother would be so proud of you," he said. "You have a bright future here." Emily smiled, feeling fulfilled. "Let's do this together, Dad." The Johnson mansion, once marked by secrets and uncertainties, now radiated love and hope. Each day, the bond between Robert and Emily grew stronger, and the business prospered under the new leadership. "We're just getting started, Emily," Robert said as they watched the sunset in the garden. "The future is ours." Emily agreed, holding her father's hand. "Yes, Dad, a bright future full of possibilities." With Emily fully integrated into the family life and the Johnson family business, the mansion transformed into a home of true happiness. The once quiet hallways were now filled with laughter and joyful conversations. Robert, who had spent years in mourning and loneliness, felt rejuvenated by his daughter's presence. "You've brought new life to this house, Emily," he said, watching her as she helped decorate the hall for a party. The energy in the mansion was contagious. The staff also felt the difference, working with renewed enthusiasm. "It's amazing to see how things have changed," Maria commented to John, the gardener. "Emily has brought new hope to all of us." John agreed, arranging a bouquet of flowers. "Yes, she's a blessing." The atmosphere was one of optimism, and everyone felt part of something bigger and more meaningful. Robert decided it was time to do something special to celebrate this new chapter. "Emily, what do you think about taking a family trip?" he suggested during dinner. "We could visit places I've always dreamed of showing you." Emily, excited by the idea, responded enthusiastically. "I'd love that, Dad. Let's plan something unforgettable." They spent the evening discussing destinations and activities, laughing and dreaming together. The decision was made. They would take a trip through Europe, visiting historic cities and breathtaking landscapes. "We'll start in Paris," Robert said, his eyes sparkling. "Your mother always wanted us to visit the Eiffel Tower together." Emily felt a special connection to the idea. "It's going to be amazing, Dad. I can't wait." The anticipation of the trip filled the mansion with joy and excitement. Preparations began, and the excitement was palpable. The staff helped with the details, feeling part of the adventure. "I want everything to be perfect for the trip," Maria said, coordinating the preparations with precision. Robert and Emily, meanwhile, were busy choosing itineraries and making reservations. "This will be a trip we'll never forget," Robert affirmed with a satisfied smile. Finally, the day of departure arrived. The mansion was filled with warm farewells and wishes for a safe journey. "Have fun and come back with lots of stories," John said, waving as the car drove away. Robert and Emily, sitting side by side, felt ready for this new adventure. "We're starting a new chapter, Emily," Robert said, looking at the road ahead. "A chapter full of love and possibilities." The trip through Europe was everything they had imagined and more. They strolled through Paris, explored the canals of Venice, and admired the ancient history of Rome. Every moment together strengthened the bond they shared. "Thank you for this experience, Dad," Emily said as they took a photo together at the Eiffel Tower. "It means the world to me." Robert smiled, feeling like the luckiest man in the world. "The pleasure is all mine, dear." When they returned to the mansion, they brought back not only souvenirs but also unforgettable memories and a renewed sense of unity. "This trip brought us even closer," Robert said during a welcome home dinner organized by Maria. "Now we're ready for any challenge." Emily agreed, feeling completely at home. "Yes, Dad, we're ready for anything." The Johnson mansion, now full of love, laughter, and shared dreams, symbolized a new beginning for the family. United by their determination and the affection they had for each other, Robert and Emily knew that the future would be bright. "The best is yet to come," Robert said, holding Emily's hand as they watched the sunset. "Together, we can conquer anything." Emily smiled, feeling complete. "Yes, Dad, together we're unstoppable."